hit record. Thank you so much. And we'll also be sharing sharing these slides and sharing the presentation afterwards. So that will be coming to you shortly as well. Wanted to thank everyone who is here. Wanted to have this be kind of a conversation to get feedback from folks, provide some basic information on where we're at with the Tier 2 incentive program as we're moving forward. We still have a bit of a lead time in here, so I think it's a good opportunity for us to see what we're missing and just provide a basic kind of general overview. We are here with the Department of Commerce. Here we provide a wide array of support focusing on community and economic development here in Washington State. Department of Commerce works with local governments, tribes, businesses, and civic leaders throughout the state of Washington to strengthen communities. We have a very passionate bunch of folks here. It's always I appreciate having conversations with coworkers and just, seeing the passion and the wide array of supports that we provide. We are part of the Clean Buildings unit. This is the building performance staff. We are led by Emily Salzberg. She is the Clean Buildings Managing Director. Over there on the left, I'm part of the incentive program. We are led by Josette Gates, and then Brittany Wagner is our Tier 1 incentive program lead. Our data team, KJ and Michael, the technical assistance team, Luke Howard, Judy, Donnie, and James, and then our program staff, Anna Lynn, Jeff Rasmussen, and Dylan Ackerman, who recently joined us. Happy to have Dylan aboard. Brief agenda. We will just go over the Clean Building Performance Standard, a very general overview, and then we'll dive into a little bit more of that Tier 2 incentive program, do that overview, talk about eligibility, talk about compliance, roles and responsibilities, dates for when two-tier buildings can apply, and for the incentive program, and then we'll move into next steps. We have some Clean Building Performance updates. Brittany had a Tier 1 enhanced incentive update to provide, and then we wanted to be sure to leave plenty of time at the end for questions and comments. If you do have any questions, you can feel free to put those into the chat. If they aren't answered in the chat, we'll get to them after at the question and comments time. But please do feel free. We want to engage in conversation as much as we want to relay information. So the Clean Building Performance Standard was authorized by House Bill 1257 in the 2019 legislative session. It's based on the ASHRAE Standard 100, which covers energy efficiency in existing buildings. Commerce has developed amendments to the Standard 100 to conform with Clean Buildings legislation. You can find the integrated document developed by ASHRAE that incorporates all state amendments into Standard 100. We have a link for accessing the integrated document. The Clean Building Performance Standard began with Tier 1 buildings. There are 3 separate cohorts of Tier 1 buildings. And then most recently, Tier 2 buildings were added in Senate Bill 5722, which expanded the work to buildings between 20,000 and 50,000 square feet, and also included multifamily buildings larger than 20,000 square feet. Through this legislation, Commerce was charged with rulemaking, building notification, notifying building owners, administering incentives, and supporting mandatory compliance. For the Tier 2 incentive program, this incentive program is to incentivize the completion of Clean Building Performance Standard requirements for Tier 2 buildings, so buildings between 20 and 50,000 square feet, and multifamily homes larger than 20,000 square feet. We still have a bit of lead time. Notifications will be sent out to building owners by July 1st, 2025. That is the first date that buildings can comply or submit their documents for compliance. And then that window for compliance is open through July 2027. So we have 2 years to get those compliance documents submitted. Interestingly enough, the incentive applications will be accepted from that very first date, July 1st of 2025 through June 30th of 2030. So if any of those incentive funds do remain after the July 1, 2027 date, building owners will still be able to apply to receive those incentive funds. So hopefully we will have all the funds dispersed by that time, but it is an option if we get to that point. Incentive funds were capped at $150 million to be paid out by participating utilities. And then that base incentive was identified at 30 cents per gross square foot. Recently, House Bill allowed for an enhanced incentive above that base of 30 cents per gross square foot. And we are still in conversations about how to structure that, trying to take into consideration equity and inclusion, excuse me, and see what would be just the best way to get that funding out the door and prioritize it. We do have a series of additional webinars coming up, and the August 15th funding distribution webinar will have a little bit more in-depth conversation about that enhanced incentive, kind of let folks know where we're at, kind of where we are leaning as far as how to structure that enhanced incentive, and then solicit feedback and comments during that conversation as well. Some of the equity inclusion that we are looking at as far as the enhancement would be around rural and tribal communities, multifamily affordable housing, multifamily buildings committed to anti-displacement, and then high energy users. That's kind of where the conversation is right now. And then also taking into consideration commitments to implementing energy efficiency upgrades with this incentive funding. For eligibility of the incentive program, buildings eligible to apply are covered commercial buildings as defined by the Clean Building Standard with between 20,000 and 50,000 square feet of gross floor area, multifamily residential buildings with greater than 20,000 square feet of gross floor area. Eligible buildings must be served by at least one electric utility, gas company, or thermal energy company participating in the Clean Buildings incentive program. The role of the utilities in this utility for a building to, sorry, I don't know why I have animation on that slide. I apologize. I'll just click right through. The utilities must be participating in the Clean Buildings incentive program. Utilities with over 25,000 customers are required to participate, and utilities with less than 25,000 customers can opt in to participate. All incentive payments will come directly from participating utilities. Commerce will calculate the incentive for each participating utility at that base of 30 cents a square foot gross floor area, excluding parking, unconditioned or semi-conditioned spaces. And again, that enhancement is to be determined how that will be structured. The incentive calculations and payments are based on the proportion of energy use by fuel type. Your electrical energy use is one portion, natural gas energy use would be another portion. So if you have two providers, two utility providers, that would be separated out among them. The roles of the individuals for Tier 2 incentive, there is the building owner and the qualified energy manager. The building owner, the individual or entity possessing title to a building will identify a qualified energy manager. There's a list of qualifications for qualified energy manager, 2 years of experience, including educational, professional experience with commercial building operations, building energy management, in addition to the successful completion of the Clean Buildings Tier 2 training program. That program is in development. We're hoping to have more information soon as far as when that will be ready. We're hoping for early 2025 to have that ready. The qualified energy manager also meets the definition of a qualified person. The qualified energy manager is required their role is based around determining the EUIT. They will submit the EUIT forms, Form C, operations and maintenance requirements, and energy management plans, developing those and getting those submitted within the portal. The basic requirements for Tier 2 compliance are benchmark, an energy management plan, and an operations and maintenance program. There's the main difference other than size between Tier 1 buildings and Tier 2 buildings is the requirement of a performance metric for compliance that is not part of the Tier 2 program. So Tier 2 buildings will, they'll have to benchmark, they'll have to submit an energy management plan, have to submit their operations and maintenance program, but they do not have to meet a performance metric at this time. For energy benchmarking, kind of the first step in the compliance process, that establishes baseline energy use of a building. It demonstrates the weather normalized energy use intensity, creates the energy use intensity target, and informs if a building meets those energy use targets. Your benchmarking can be done on the Energy Star with the Energy Star portfolio manager. This is kind of the first step in the process, and this is something that building owners can be doing now. If they are not currently benchmarking their energy usage, they can go to Energy Star Portfolio Manager and start that process. The energy management plan is a document that describes a building's energy performance and typically consists of the following: building energy metering and reporting, energy use intensity reporting, energy efficiency measures implementation, operations and maintenance considerations for energy managers, and then communication responsibilities. Moving on to the operations and maintenance program. This develops an inventory of equipment, systems, and controls to be inspected and maintained, maintenance plan describing goals, objectives, execution of systems, maintenance programs, and ongoing revision to the plan when building use or systems change. That was a very quick overview of benchmarking energy management plans, operation and maintenance plans. We will have more specific webinars in the future for building owners to really dive in with that. Our technical assistance team will be providing some additional guidance to that, as they are the experts in that area. As far as what's next or what building owners can do now, again, notification will go out before July 1st of 2025. So, right now, folks can sign up for Secure Access Washington account. That will be required to log into the Clean Buildings portal, which is where the documents will be submitted and compliance will be demonstrated. Building owners can create an Energy Star portfolio management account. They can also start developing their EMP, energy management plan, and operations and maintenance program, and they can confirm their utilities participation in the incentive program. After notification, on or before July 1st, 2025, once a building owner gets that notification, they can access the Clean Buildings portal, share their building properties, and automate the utility data upload. So take that benchmarking information from the utility and get that uploaded into the Clean Buildings portal. As far as confirming the utilities participation, if you're not sure, we would encourage you to reach out to your utility. You can also feel free to reach out to us. And we can reach out to utilities as well to kind of see where they are as far as participating in the incentive program, have any conversations we may need to have, share any information with them. Just wanted to give a quick little snapshot of the Clean Buildings portal. That is where your documentation, your forms will be uploaded, and that is developed here in Commerce. And we continually make updates. We continually try to make improvements to the portal to make sure it is a good resource and nice and easy and understandable for folks to use. Additional support. There are many of the utilities have accelerator programs. There is the Smart Building Center, which has a help desk. The Energy Star Portfolio Manager has lots of recorded and live trainings. The WSU Energy Program has recorded webinars around energy management plans and operations and maintenance programs. And then the Department of Commerce has as well. We have lots of information and resources on our website. As far as program planning, where we are at now, sorry, there we go. I added animation to some of these and wasn't sure which ones. The program planning, where we want to go, we would like to determine, make sure we're having an equitable prioritization for incentive funding, especially now that we have gotten the go-ahead to, go above that base incentive of 30 cents per square foot. So if you have any feedback, you have any questions about that, we would really appreciate that. We are developing a guidebook for applying to the program just to kind of help folks have a nice reference document. It mirrors a lot of what the Tier 1 guidebook looks like, but obviously specific to Tier 2. As far as resources, what sorts of resources are needed for folks as they are looking to, not only apply to the incentive program, but then comply with the Clean Buildings performance standard for Tier 2 buildings. We are developing an energy management plan template, as well as an operation and maintenance program template. So those will be things that will be available to folks who would like to use those, but I don't believe they would be the required document that folks would have to use. But beyond that, what other sorts of resources are needed for folks as they are digging in and identifying what they are going to need in order to apply for that incentive program and comply with Clean Buildings performance standard. Additionally, how can we better communicate this program and the support that we have available? What networks are there, which you may be a part of, which we are not a part of, which you have not seen us participate in. We would like to we'd like to know those, and just any way that we can better communicate this program. There will be a lot of different considerations for Tier 2 buildings, especially with the multifamily housing. That's going to be a big difference, between the Tier 1 buildings and those networks which we have already started. Upcoming events, we have some more webinars coming up. In August, we have our funding distribution webinar. Again, we'll talk about the enhanced incentive and get a little bit more into the details about how that funding, will be paid, will be structured. October 10th, there will be a building owner focus. And that will be a little bit more specific as far as, developing energy management plan, operations and maintenance program. Folks from our tech team, from our technical team will be there on that webinar to provide a little bit more specific guidance around those more technical aspects. We'll have a utility provider focused webinar November 14th. I believe Department of Revenue will be there to talk about their role in the incentive program as far as their role in the incentive program. And then December 12th, we will look to provide a webinar finalizing the program. Hopefully the guidebook will be finalized by then, and we can have we'll go over that. We'll review the guidebook, finalize the program, and have final conversations. That was what I had for the overview. For more clean buildings updates, Brittany, if you wanted to take a moment, your floor is yours.
Thanks. So not going to do a major announcement during this recording, but we have a proposed incentive increase for the enhanced incentives for Tier 1. Right now, we're just kind of doing the paperwork aspect, doing the internal review, and then we'll get the AAG to look it over and approve it. And once we have that done, we will get it published. So probably send something out in the bulletin, and in these upcoming webinars, we can keep everyone in the know on the Tier 1 work too, because we know some of you have both Tier 1 and Tier 2 buildings.
Thank you, Brittany. Move on to questions and comments. If anyone has any questions, or if there are any questions in the chat we'd like to get to, we can do that at this time.
Yeah. So I will read them off in order of the chat. Some of them have been answered, so we can just verbally go over those. But starting with, let's see, I believe it was Douglas Rich. Is there a list of utilities providers who are participating currently? And then I already responded. We do have an internal list. It's not completely comprehensive covering the state, but we can look into getting that out to you. And as Derek mentioned, we encourage you to reach out to your utility and see if they're participating. Derek, anything to add?
No, yeah, well, yeah, if we can share that list, we'll get that out there with the slides and the recording.
Okay. Jennifer Pritchard, do performance metrics for Tier 2 start in 2031? I don't know if you're looking at the chat, if it's helpful. Annalyn wrote something regarding the RCW 19.27A.250, and the language states by December 31st of 2030, the department must adopt rules for performance standards for Tier 2 covered buildings. However, the rules may not take effect before the end of 2031 regular legislative session. So
pretty much anything can happen because of the legislative session. We'll have the rules, and then if as long as it continues to be supported, there may be a performance metric for Tier 2 after that legislative session. If that makes sense.
All right, next question. Does Commerce have an EMP and O&M template available for Tier 2 buildings?
We don't have that available right now, but that is something that we are developing. I believe our tech team is working on getting that developed. So we do have every intention of having that available for folks to use.
Okay. There are a few that's already in existence. If you are participating in the accelerator programs, they do provide an O&M and EMP template. I believe Arch Ecology and WSU did an EMP and O&M webinar. They've also provided free templates. Is that correct, Donnie? If we could put those in the put that in the chat. I don't know if that's accessible to you, but that could be used right now. But we are developing one specifically from Commerce that'll be available in the future.
Okay, well, Donnie's looking for that. Dave Kobar, will the incentives be upfront or tax rebates?
The incentives will be direct payments from the utilities to the building owners, and then the utilities themselves, it would be a tax incentive on their behalf, but it would be a direct payment to the building owner from the utility. Did I explain that correctly? Anybody else?
Yes.
And it'll be after compliance has been met. So after
Yes.
reporting and submitting the MP and O&M, not before.
Thank you.
And not before.
Sorry, not before. I just wanted to make that clear because, you know, although we would love to give money up front, that's just not how it works.
No, thank you for the clarification.
Yeah.
All right, MJ, utility date will already be in the portfolio manager account for a building that needs to report. Is it also required that this utility data be provided to the Commerce portal?
So how the portal works is that when you go through and you're trying to submit compliance, at least for right now, the tier 2 applications for compliance, we have an API connection with the Energy Star Portfolio Manager and the portal. So you would have to kind of approve Commerce to share that data, and then you would enter your Energy Star Portfolio Manager account, approve the connection, and it will just merge into the portal.
Okay,
yeah.
thank you. This is my MJ. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And, you know, in the future, we're probably going to have some step-by-step videos on how that looks like. So just keep an eye out on that.
Thanks very much.
And then also, I think I neglected to mention that benchmarking data can go back 2 years. So it would be July 1st of 2023 would be the first day, you know, that you could start recording or start using that 12 months of benchmarking data.
That's good to know. I guess people can be like just absolutely ready
Yes.
come July 1st, 2025.
Yep.
Brittany, you got the next question? I haven't really looked.
Well, it would probably help if I took myself off mute. I was wondering why no one answered the question. Apologies. So Maggie Merton said, are you traveling throughout communities to reach underserved areas?
We don't have any. I don't have anything scheduled at this time, but you know, in looking to develop those networks, you know, that is definitely something, at least for the tier 2, you know, program. You know, speaking for myself, that I would definitely like to get out there and think that that would be a great way to get the word out and establish those connections. So. If anybody, you know, has anything that they want to set up, or I would encourage them to reach out to me, reach out to the incentives program, reach out to the building's performance team.
Yes. And just to add to that, you know, we're doing our best, and we can definitely do more. One ways of trying to reach out to those communities is through our network and through their network. So we're reaching out to the utilities because they have their customers, and then our you know, other organizations that provide support. We'll reach out to them. We've done presentations to multifamily. Hopefully we could do more now that rules have been established. When tier 2 rulemaking was happening, we did go across the state trying to ensure that everybody was able to provide feedback and comment for tier 2 rules. So now that we're kind of staffed up, as you know, Derek and Josette, Jeff and Dylan, these are new staff members. So with more staff, we can, you know, the intention is there to provide more outreach, education, and customer support to the underserved communities, especially multifamily, nonprofits, things like that. You are not forgotten. It's in the forefront of our minds for sure.
Okay, so Alex Harris, how will Commerce be reviewing and evaluating building owner EMP and O&Ms? Can we expect feedback or like a pass-fail result?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Yeah, so how will Commerce be
Okay.
reviewing and evaluating the building owner EMP and O&Ms? Can we expect feedback or is it a pass-fail result?
So currently, right now with tier one, we're in the phase of early compliance. Because the first compliance is in tier for the largest cohort of buildings, it's in 2026. So right now we're looking at EMP and O&M, and we're able to give feedback. With the tier two incentive program, when you submit that O&M EMP, I'm not quite sure how it's going to work. We're still having to figure out how that is all going to look like with review and process. Clearly, our staff capacity and the volume of requests is going to come in. So we'll probably refine our process as we have lessons learned with tier one review. So I guess right now we don't have the answer, but we're certainly figuring it out with what we're doing right now with tier one.
Well, and Annalyn, to add
Yeah.
to that, I think the reporting tools, the O&M reporting tool and the EMP reporting tool might give a sneak peek about the
Yes.
checklists of what's required. So I'm getting the links and I'll post that in the chat.
Yeah, if you look at the reporting tool, that's kind of what we based on what we're looking for in that O&M EMP. A lot of the reporting tool is pretty much, it's just the standard in a PDF document, just in a more digestible and more focused document. So you can see that. Yeah. Thanks, Judy.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Stephen Kraus, do you expect the MP and O&M documents to be similar to tier one for tier two and tier one? Did Annalyn's explanation?
No, I think I know what they're saying. I think the intention is to have the templates that we're going to put out to be applicable to tier one as well, right? Judy, Donnie, I don't know if you want to chime in about that, but that's the intention. It's clearly, within the RCW, it clearly says that we have to provide extra support for tier two building owners, and that's why we have that funding to create these templates. But mainly, it should support tier one application as well.
Yeah, hey, Annalyn, this is James. So yeah, the intent of the O&M tool specifically is definitely targeted to tier two building owners, including a tool that can be used by like building operators as they do like space walkthroughs and whatnot. And like you said, the intention is that it can be applied to a tier one level, acknowledging the fact that tier one buildings, being larger may be more complex, and there may need to be some additional add-ons by tier one building owners and building operators to kind of work within those complex systems. But generally speaking, the templates are all really targeted around tier two and made to be user-friendly.
Okay, great. Brianna Morin, when do you expect to have a complete list of the tier two building owners in the state and make it available? Derek, you have the floor.
We're still developing that. Our data team is looking into that right now. I believe they had 4 or 5 counties that they needed to go through still to verify, and then we'll need to do another level of verification after that. I'm hoping that we can have some, not necessarily finalized, but a good general idea within the coming months before that August 15th conversation about the funding distribution, just so we have a better idea, just of how many multifamily housing complexes, make this up, what are we looking at as K through 12 and colleges and universities, things like that. So it is in the works. We are close to having a first draft, but as far as a specific date, I'm not sure.
We have to up to July 2025 when notifications are sent. So we need a list to send those notifications. So we'll have at least by then.
Awesome. Sorry to put you in the hot seat. How are this is Chris Burrows. How are buildings with multiple tenants handled? For example, a strip mall with 2 restaurants, 3 retail spaces, and a laundromat. My chat jumped up. Will a different target for each type of space in the building be needed?
Perhaps someone from the tech team has a little bit better.
I think Judy
Description.
started to answer. Can you elaborate, Judy?
Right, so the building owner is responsible for compliance and applying for incentives. The tenants are not. And each individual building, like a strip mall, if they're interconnected by conditioned space, there's different qualities. So it's hard to give a general answer, but if it's one building and it meets the requirement, it would be the building owner's responsibility to comply, and then can apply for incentives.
Thank you.
This is
Brian?
Donnie real quick, just to tell on the targets, individuals could be unique, the different in a building. So yes. Question.
So Donnie
Could be-
broke up a little bit for me, and I'm wondering if he did for
Yeah,
other
he broke
people.
up a little bit. Can you fill in the lines
The-
of what
the
he
m-
said?
I think what he's saying is the multiple uses could, calculate your target, will apply to the different building activity types within a building and how they calculate the target. Is that what you were going for, Donnie?
Yeah, I think that's what he's moving for, like the maybe area weighted target based on the different building activity types within the building, if it is all one interconnected space.
Yep.
This is Chris, just one quick follow-up on that. So by interconnected space, you mean like sharing walls, not so 2 retail spaces with a shared wall. Are those 2 separate spaces or one space?
So a party wall can be thermally isolating and can create 2 separate buildings, 2 separate spaces, or it could also be uninsulated and be interconnected.
Okay, so the interconnection is kind of the key point.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Look at the definition of building and
Yeah.
hopefully that helps.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brian Zoller, is Commerce considering additional incentives for building owners who wish to reduce their weather normalized DUI prior to targets coming out in 2030-32?
You know, there's not a specific language saying that funds are in that for that intention. However, you know, with Commerce, as you can see, like how much funding opportunities has come up within the past year. We're always looking for funding opportunities and ways to support our building owner. Between now and 2031, anything can happen, and we could even get even more money or maybe less money, but we're always trying to find ways. Just because we received that feedback in which we need, you know, building owners need funds, they need support. So we're always working on that.
Yeah, I think one of the exciting things about this tier 2 program is that it is like, this is largely a data gathering exercise. You know, we're going to be getting a lot of information about buildings in Washington state, and that is just going to inform you know, inform any asks that we can do, inform, you know, a lot of the conversations that we're having around the kind of support, and have it be a little bit more specific with all of this data that we're gathering.
Absolutely.
Okay, Kirby Waithman, are there any other exemptions other than manufacturing for who has to comply? And then James went into a little bit of detail. If you want to talk about that, James.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Refer them to the standard.
yeah, it's a bit of a laundry list. So section Y 4.1 in the standard, there's bullet 1 and bullet 2. Under bullet 2, it has a list of all the different exemption conditions, and that includes like certificate of occupancy, physical occupancy, floor area, manufacturing or industrial, agricultural, demolition, and financial hardship. And I'd really recommend kind of reading through that. Those different definitions as you go through, particularly like the financial hardship. There's multiple different categories under that. And obviously, if you have any questions, you know, about any of those categories, please submit like a customer support ticket, and we can get back to you on that.
There's like about 9 if you really look at them, I think. And
So grab the supervisor report. We'll go through it together.
Christi-
And then I'll kind
Can
of
you
walk-
unmute, or excuse me, can you mute yourself if you're?
there, I got it.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so with those exemptions, just in addition to that, it's similar to the tier 1 exemptions, except for like the square footage. Instead of 50,000, it's like 20,000 of less than 20,000 of conditioned space. And also, if you are on the list, like such as agricultural structures, please read more into it, because you're on the list of exemption, you still have to apply for exemption. It's not a automatically given or awarded, I should say.
Like you just don't have to not do anything.
Yeah, like we didn't how the RCW was written, how the bill was written, in which you have to show that you are a manufacturer or you are an agricultural structure in order for you to be. That's why they're in the list of covered buildings.
Okay. So, and then it looks like both you, Annalyn, and Rebecca posted a resource for the EMP. And then Paulette de Coriolis, I apologize if I did not get that right, wanted to know about condominiums. And then Judy answered essentially saying that they are considered single family dwellings, so they're not part of compliance. So Judy or Paulette, if you have anything else to add. Or Paulette, did Judy answer your question?
Where in the RCWs or WACs is that stated?
So it gets into the definition of a multifamily dwelling, multifamily and multiple units, 5 or more. I'm looking at it's 5 dwelling units or more with one owner. And because condominiums are individually owned, they're not a multifamily unit, multifamily building. And Donnie jumped in. Oh, I want to say Donnie jumped in, but he breaks up. So it's not what's the word I'm looking for? Exclusively exempted in the WAC or RCW. It's the definitions and how that applies. They're not covered buildings, the units themselves, but the community area can be owned by the association of the condo association, and specifically building owner for the community area would be considered a multifamily area. And if that area exceeds the 20,000 or 50,000, well, it's tier 2, whether it's 20,000 or 50,000. So if it exceeds the 20,000 square foot, that would be considered a multifamily area. Or if there's retail space, like on the first floor, that would be that exceeds the 20,000, that those would be covered areas. But the units themselves are individually owned and do not qualify.
Thank you.
Thanks, Judy.
Thank you for that. Okay, Andrea Jack, please. Any updates on energy manager training?
Is that for the tier 2, the qualified energy manager?
I'm assuming it's that the qualified energy manager training. We are going to develop the curriculum, and then hopefully we'll have that available. If not, it's not, I think the plan is not for Commerce to actually do it. I think it's going to be subcontracted out. But when that comes to fruition, we'll definitely get that announced in the bulletin and ensure that everyone is aware of it. But hopefully it will be available beginning of 2025.
Thank you. And then Paulette had a follow-up, but I think Judy covered it. Paulette, chime in if not. Michael Leba, are there exemptions for properties that are 100% electrified?
No,
No, yeah, not to my knowledge either.
Mm-mm.
that was the simplest answer ever.
Yep. But that's great. Kara Godwin, would co-op apartment buildings be exempt under the same logic that condos are exempt? I'm not sure. I've never heard of the term co-op apartment. I don't know if anybody on the team has.
Neither have I.
Yeah, are
Um,
the units individually owned? In most apartments, it's rented from a, from a building owner or landlord. So I would not think it would be, but.
I welcome Kara to respond and clarify a little bit, but I've lived in a co-op apartment. They're owned technically by the tenants. So it is a really unique question that I don't know the answer to, but maybe somebody else does.
I
We,
admit, this is Kara Godwin. I'm asking for a friend, and so I don't know the specifics, but who
Yeah.
could I point?
we'll put our email in, in the chat. If you could send that email to us and then we'll talk amongst ourselves. We may even have to consult with our, AAG, to have a better understanding of if it's in or out, but I think the best way is, we keep track of this outside of the, because we don't want to drop the ball to drop and be forgotten. So if you could send that, email to us.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. And we'll respond to you when we've, a lot of conversation. What I've come to realize over the years, we've discovered so many unique situations, and we'll have to discuss amongst ourselves, bring it to our leaders, and then from there it may have to go even further up. So we thank you for that question.
I just put the buildings email in the chat. That's for the technical questions, but I'm also going to put the incentives email in the chat for incentive questions.
Thank you. And that wraps up the chat questions, Derek. So I'll hand it back over to you if anybody wants to, come off mute or anything.
Yeah, and if there are any other questions that anyone has right now they would like to ask, they can feel free to come off of mute.
Derek, I have one in the Q&A.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
can you pull up the Q&A or you want me to read it?
I don't have access to the Q&A. I'm not seeing any questions.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, Brittany, you don't,
I don't have the ability.
Co-host. So I'll give you that co-host.
Oh,
But the first, so there's 4 of them, I'm sorry. And the first one is the training program expected to apply to both tier 1 and tier 2 or only tier 2? The training, the quote unquote training program, it's going to be the qualified energy manager. The qualified energy manager within the standard is the kind of the qualified person level for submitting the documentation and developing that UIT, things like that. So it's a qualified energy manager. A qualified energy manager is not required for tier 1 compliance, but it is required for tier 2, if that makes sense.
So that would be for tier 2 then only. Yeah.
Let's see there.
And then can you see the questions now, Brittany?
yes. So anonymous question. Will there be official O&M and EMP templates that make it into the Clean Buildings Performance document library?
Yes.
Yes, we're going to try to get those out before tier 2 launches. So another question, Nicole Wakey. Building owners are spending a lot of time mapping out all the due dates for tier 1 and tier 2 above and beyond final compliance dates, such as 12 months before, 12 months after data, plus measure and verification, or 180 days prior, or many others. For portfolios with buildings in both tiers, it looks like we are starting on round 2 of tier 1 at the same time as we're wrapping up round 1 of tier 2. It would be great if Commerce could put together a simple spreadsheet with due dates for all building sizes, compliance pathways, like investment criteria, exemptions, and UIT, and both tiers, so we can be sure we are able to complete all components at the right time.
This is very helpful feedback.
We
do have the compliant, just a general compliance date, and we do have a sample of what a tier 1 would go through, and how long it may take, because it's different based on the size and the complexity of the building systems, things like like that. And I could put that in the chat and you could kind of see that, but we haven't, we are taking this time since we've finalized the tier 2 rules to develop and some resources for tier 2, including something like this. And thank you, Nicole. We'll have something something like this for others.
Yeah, and I think it could be nice. I don't know if it would maybe be on multiple documents, but not even just for compliance, but for the incentive programs. You know, there's different timelines for everything. So I think having a nice map, maybe for incentives, tier 1, tier 2, et cetera, could be nice. Maybe it's all one, maybe it's multiple, but yeah, thank you for that. Jeanette Plunkett, this looks like the last question. Confirming the buildings participating in a decarb plan for House Bill 1390 will be eligible. And then will the incentives be targeted at emission reduction? Can you tell us what will differentiate the advanced incentive?
Could you, a little, the 1390, I'm a little.
So
Yeah,
House
you're
Bill
gonna do-
1390 is decarbonization of the district energy system. I'm sorry,
Right.
I'm gonna have to, can you say the question again, Brittany?
Yeah.
Yes, so confirming that buildings participating in the decarb plan will be eligible for, we'll start with that question, for tier 2 incentives.
Yes. I mean, assuming it's a tier 2 eligible building. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And will the incentives be targeted at emission reduction?
I mean, there's no performance metric in the tier 2 incentives or compliance. You know, it's the benchmarking, energy management plan, and the operations and maintenance program. So there's no performance metric in that. We do ask folks to identify their weather normalized energy use intensity and then identify that energy use intensity target, but they are not required to meet that target. They're just required to identify it. If that answers that portion of the question.
I think it does. And the last part, can you tell us what will differentiate the advanced incentive?
The enhanced incentive, I think, you know, we're a lot of that is up for consideration. You know, I think it will largely be around equity and inclusion. You know, I think in looking at the tier 1 enhancement, you know, there with the tier 1, you know, needing to meet that performance metric, it's a different conversation than with tier 2, since there is no performance metric. You know, not to say that this complying with the Clean Building Performance Standard for tier 2 buildings, you know, is not impactful and is not a heavy lift, but you know, there is no requirement that buildings you know, have to make changes because of this. Tier 2 buildings have to make changes because of this. So, you know, we want to be sure that we are that funding is available for under-resourced communities. And I think that is the priority now, or at least the conversations that we're having is how can we be sure that we are reserving, you know, funds for under-resourced communities at this time.
Mm-hmm. And you entered advanced, it's enhanced. There's no advancements in incentives, just in case.
I was
There's a-
wondering, I was like, is there
Yeah.
another
Yeah, there's no
change?
advance. It's in enhanced payments. By enhanced payment, it's greater than the 30 cents a square foot.
Yeah. And
Right.
you know-
Yeah.
sorry, go
Oh,
ahead.
just wanted to add to the answer a little bit about the interaction between the decarbonization of the district energy system versus tier 1, tier 2 connected buildings. The way we're looking at it is the system itself complies with all the connected buildings, but each building would be looked at as a tier 1 or a tier 2 building, whether they're qualified for the incentive programs. And then if they qualify for tier 2 or the enhanced incentive as a tier 2 building, that building would be would get that incentive for that square footage. But when you do your system decarbonization district energy system compliance, then you could be doing improvements on tier 2 buildings, tier 1 buildings, whatever is connected to get that system compliance. And so they're interactive, but they're also separate. I hope that clarifies.
Oh, thank you, Judy.
Yeah, and the timeline doesn't extend to the tier 2 incentive. Like, what I'm trying to say, if you wait until after funds are expended or, like spent, because it's later on along the line, then there's no funds. if that makes
Not to
sense.
cut you off, but it is 12:01, so Derek,
okay.
I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up and we can.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Yeah, if there were any questions that did not get answered or any clarifications anyone would like, please do feel free to reach out, send us an email. You can send it to me, to our buildings and tech team, to the incentive program itself. The next webinar, August 15th, will be about funding distribution. So we will continue that conversation, do a little bit more of a deep dive into the enhanced incentive payment. Take some more time for that. Thank you so much to everyone for being here, to the team for helping out. And yes, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.